morning, Hugh.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Philadelphia. Hey, just remember, if the food in the company refrigerator does not belong to you, don't eat it.
Sound advice, Hugh.
Yeah, but people do it all the time. That's like the absolute worst thing in the world to do. And, plus being here now and seeing that everybody leaves their food in the refrigerator. I haven't eaten anybody's food, but I'm just saying.
So is this advice for yourself, or did someone swipe your food?
No, I haven't put anything in there, but I hear all the time about people talking about how people have no respect for people that have food in the refrigerator. So some people have like little refrigerator compartments where you can actually lock.
Ooh.
And stuff like that. So yeah.
A little safe for your food there.
Yeah, a little safe for food. So just stop eating people's food, man.
It's not that hard. Good advice from Hugh. As long as we're giving out advice, and we got a lot to talk about today, including the Phils. Dave Dabrowski, great interview this morning with Cameron Ritchie down in Clearwater. But as long as we're starting with advice, I've got some for Howie Roseman and the Eagles.
What you got?
Keep Haason Reddick. Make this work. Do not trade him away. Unfortunately, I might not get my way here. Jeremy Fowler yesterday from ESPN put this out. The Eagles are moving Haason Reddick's $1 million roster bonus, originally due March 15th, to April 1st, per sources. That, in theory, buys Philly time for a potential trade before having to pay the money. The Haason Reddick saga continues here. And here's where I'm at on all this, Hugh. I know that they've added some at the position. I know it's not completely bare. But I still believe the Eagles need Haason Reddick for this team for next season. Okay, whatever we think of what happened last year, he's still their best defensive player. If I'm going under the premise they're trying to win the Super Bowl, I can't move on from my best defensive player and say I'm trying to win the Super Bowl. It doesn't make any sense to me. The salary cap, while I thought it would be an issue starting this offseason, and I'm like, that's probably why they can't get this done. And we saw the latest updates here. The Eagles have like the third or fourth most salary cap space. They could obviously fit him in to what they have here. I don't think they're going to get a ton back for him, and I'll steal a line from Kyle here. Trying to win the Super Bowl, a third-round pick rookie's probably not helping me win the Super Bowl this particular season, and I know they signed Bryce Huff, and I like Bryce Huff. He reminds me of Hugh Douglas. I like Bryce Huff. And Nolan Smith is promising, and Josh Sweat is back. But you know what those guys aren't? They're not as good as Haason Reddick. Huff is a part-time player. It's all he's been with the Jets so far. He's a part-time player. Nolan Smith is totally unproven, and Josh Sweat's better off as a number 2 than a number 1. Hugh, where are you as the Reddick situation, the saga continues? I still think they need him. What do you think?
Let me say this first before I start talking. I like Haason Reddick. I think he's a hell of a player. I think that he's going to go somewhere else and make a ton of money. But as far as needing him, it would be nice to have him, but I don't think that they need him. And I think that everything that they're doing thus far lets you know how what the necessity he has here is not that great. For whatever reason that may be. Maybe it was because he was disgruntled in the locker room. Maybe it was because when you look at the film and you see certain things that he's doing, even though he put up a lot of great numbers in the sack game, we got gashed a lot of times on the run. And a lot of times when watching film, a lot of it came to his side or it was a reverse or something of that nature. So he wasn't playing discipline. Again, like I said, I like Haason Reddick a lot. And probably some of that was because he wasn't as happy as he would have liked to been, being here because they didn't give him the money that he wanted. So with that being said, I think that they went out and they got some guys who, when you look at them, they don't, as an individual, they don't put up the numbers or they don't have the impact that Haason Reddick has. But collectively, I think it's about the same thing. And I think also what you have is a group. When you look at Zach Vaughn, you look at Bryce Huff, Julian Okwara, and Devin White, you have a bunch of guys out there that are somewhat interchangeable, and it gives you a little bit more versatility in your defensive scheme. So I think that's what it gives you. Even though it'll be nice to have him here, Joe, I don't think that it's necessarily needed for him to be here.
So it feels like the Eagles are thinking like you are, Hugh, on this, and obviously that's why all this trade stuff continues here. The Eagles, I don't think the Eagles believe they need him. I believe they do. Elliot Shore-Parks on the morning show yesterday, he's reading the tea leaves here. He thinks we are about to see the end of Reddick in an Eagles uniform.
Yeah, I think Reddick's probably played his last snap with the Eagles. I can't say 100% because things can change, right? Obviously, people can have a change of heart. The Eagles could change their mind, vice versa. But the reason I feel very confident in saying that is I don't think Josh Sweat comes back or, agrees to like a one-year deal if he doesn't think he's getting major playing time next season. And Huff doesn't come here if he doesn't think he's getting major playing time next season. So as much as they rotate their edges around, Reddick is certainly not going to be happy with, splitting snaps three ways.
Well, he's probably right about that. And I understand all the reasoning out there about the Reddick situation, but I just keep coming back to this. He's their best pass rusher. I know they've got a lot, but yet, I want him and all they all have. I mean, here's the thing. It's not like he's not on the team and they have to go get him. He's here already. He's on the team already. And it's not like the salary cap is a major issue right now. They have $30+ million in space. They could clearly fit him in. I just look at next year, and I'm trying to build the best possible defense. And I'd like Huff. I hope Nolan Smith could play. I'm glad Sweat is back. But that to me is a rotation. You have those three, and you keep Haason Reddick. Hugh, that's probably the best pass rush rotation in the NFL. You lose Reddick, and all of a sudden it's not quite as deep as it would have been.
Yeah, I would agree, but I think that part of the reason why we are at the position we're in now is that, number one, Haason Reddick wanted to be traded. I think that's number one. And from the looks of it, there's not a whole lot of trade partners out there from the looks of it right now. Mm-hmm. And I think, number two, that when you look at the film and Coach Fangio looking at the film, I think he probably felt that in some aspects that Haason Reddick was somewhat of a liability in the pass rush game, or in the run game, especially because a lot of times when you look at the film, Joe, there were abandoned moments where the defensive ends didn't do a great job of setting the line of scrimmage. They didn't do a good job of setting the edges, I should say, and things of that nature. So maybe Coach Fangio wants some more of a disciplined defense, and he probably feels that right now Haason Reddick is not the guy that fits that bill for him.
Well, you might be right on that. And, I understand, Vic Fangio's got a long track record of putting together
I
good
know about
defenses.
being undisciplined, Joe.
Yeah?
I know about that. Hey, being undisciplined got me here in Philadelphia. I mean, to be totally honest, I was out there doing renegade stuff, and I had a pretty decent season that year as far as playing in a 3-4 defense, but I didn't fit schematically what they wanted to do.
And they moved on.
Yeah, they moved. I mean, and it's one of those things where we look at it as fans and say, hey, well, this guy's a good fit, but schematically it doesn't fit because you're leaving holes in the defense, which we just can't have.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I'm not trying to tell you that Haason Reddick is an all-time great player. I know he has tendencies to freelance, and he's not great against the run, but he's been there. Of all the Eagles' pass rushers, right?
He's been the best.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the depth guys they've added, and they have. It clearly, Hugh, they're preparing to move on from him. They've signed Huff. They've signed depth, too, right? You mentioned Okwara, you mentioned Bond. Like, they are preparing for Reddick not to be here. I just look at it and say, he's the best guy. Like, next year, big game. Let's say it's mid-December. The Eagles have 10 wins. The Cowboys have 10 wins. The vision is on the line. And you line up all those names you gave me, and you say, Joe, pick the two guys coming off the edge. Who do you want on the field?
Are you asking me?
I'm going to say, if you're asking me, I would say Huff and Reddick. Imagine he's still here. I would sit down Sweat. I would sit down Brandon Graham. I would sit down all those other guys. I would say, if I need a sack on this play, go get Dak Prescott. I want Reddick and Huff. And if you take him away, yeah, I might still get to the quarterback, but it's not as good of a player.
If I had to pick two, it would be Huff and Smith, because I'm looking at it like this. If Huff comes in and does what we think he can do, and as fast as I've seen Nolan Smith be, I like those two guys together on the same side of the ball, putting pressure on the quarterback from whatever side they're bringing it from. So I like those two guys. Like, again, I like Haason Reddick. I like him a lot. I hate the fact that it's gotten to this point. But the reality of the situation is there's two things going against Haason. His play against the run last year and the fact that he's asking for more money. And with that, he's going to be 31 years old, Joe, and he wants to get one big bite at the apple, one last bite at the apple, and he knows that. So I'm thinking for him, it's more about getting as much money up front as opposed to being on a team that, is vying for a playoff or a Super Bowl. I think that's more important to him, and that's the decision that he's going to have to make.
Well, he is going to have to make it, and the Eagles are going to have to make it. 215-592-9494. It's how you hop aboard. I'm looking at the Chiefs last year, right? The Chiefs win the Super Bowl. They had a tremendous defense last year. They had 4 pass rushers with at least 6.5 sacks last year. 4 of them. Do the Eagles have 4 guys that we can say right now will have that many sacks? I'm going to say Bryce Huff will. I believe in
Bryce Huff. I think Sweat could come back and have a pretty decent season.
I'll give you Jalen Carter in the middle.
Yeah, you got to give me that.
That's
one.
3. That's 3.
And I'll take Nolan.
You think Nolan could jump that high?
I would take Nolan
Woo!
in limited snaps, coming off the edge, learning the position. Not as a starter. I would take him as the role that Bryce Huff was in last year with the Jets.
Well, last year Nolan Smith had 1. If he could jump to that 7 range like you're talking about, Hugh, that's a big deal.